Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Second Earth Alternative. Wow. I don't know what to say about this episode. This is pretty cool, to say the least. Basically, just to kind of sum it up what's happening here, I'm going to go over this news footage, and they're basically talking about a UFO that happened actually not that far from where I live in South Florida. What I found so amazing is that the news, I don't want to give away too much, but let's just say that the footage that is displayed, I found something that looks very similar to that, and something that can potentially be verified as being real. So, this is what you call like an independent confirmation. And these are the things that I'm always hunting for when talking about this type of topic, because, it's obviously it's hard to prove, with modern technology, and sometimes you just see little lights and you're like, man, how do I know that that's real? So these are huge moments whenever you can find things that are collaborating with each other and in a way seem to support each other and validate the idea that these crafts might actually be as exotic as some of the eyewitnesses are saying. It's like one of those things, like when you see a UFO and you describe it to somebody, then they're like, oh, this guy must be crazy, or, it's so hard to break that barrier of trying to get somebody to actually trust that you saw something extraordinary, but when you actually see it yourself, it's like, what you're looking at, that this is something that cannot be anything else. Like, for example, one day I'm looking at what looked like just like a tiny little star. And I'm like, why is this star moving super fast? And then it just goes the other direction. So that doesn't just happen. But if you try to explain that to somebody, they're just like, oh man, you must be just dreaming or whatever. So this is why I'm super excited about this episode. And I think we should just get started. Actually, one thing real quick. Recently, I published an episode on my new channel, Strange Horizon. Now, we have about 280 subscribers, which is, it's okay, given the fact that I have 19,000 subscribers in this channel. I was hoping to get a little bit more of a jump on that channel. So if you're not aware that I have a new channel, if you haven't seen this new video, in which took a lot of research, it was like days and days and days of 12-hour days of research, and then it was like 3 days of editing. So I put a lot of time in that video to make sure that it's up to standard to something that the audience could enjoy. So if you have not checked out why Göbekli Tepe might be connected to the ancient aliens, you can check out that video on youtube.com/Strange Horizon. All right, so let's go ahead and play this news video.
It might be a plane or maybe even a helicopter, but one man says he believes he saw a UFO in our Florida skies. NBC2's Gage Golding is showing you the extraordinary sight that was all caught on camera.
They were kind of glowing and flickering a little bit.
It was Wednesday evening when Matt Krause and his wife looked up, but they didn't see the moon. Instead, they saw a single bright light. Then,
new lights appeared.
Sorry, I can't help it. I just have to. All right, play on.
Hear it, and they got really, really bright at that point. And there were about 4 of them, and they kind of moved in different directions.
He snapped these pictures, saying whatever these are didn't make any sound and seemed to be hovering in place.
What I can't explain, though, is why they were so bright, why they were stationary. For one of them was stationary.
I just want to pause here for a second, because when they said that this thing didn't make any noise, I think for a lot of people who are familiar with the topic of ufology, this is one of the most common attributes when people seem to experience something that is extraordinary. It's that they're seeing this immense object, or sometimes this very bright light, and it's just silent. There's no sound whatsoever.
Stationary for one of them was stationary for 15 minutes.
So I asked RSW if anything abnormal was going on. They deferred us to the FAA. The FAA says we'd have to ask the military. Naples Airport Authority, however, says there wasn't anything out of the ordinary on radar that night, but noted it could be Chinese lanterns, which are illegal in city limits. Matt doesn't think so.
The random movement is kind of what convinced me that there weren't something like Chinese lanterns that were being blown by the wind.
Back on Naples Beach, suspicion was in the air.
I feel there's something out there.
And it's funny because Chinese lanterns outside of flares, it seems to be like one of the most common explanations for UFOs. I guess another one would be weather balloon during the Roswell crash. And I think people started going away from the idea of weather balloon because, it's just kind of got old. I think people just kind of caught on to that excuse. But when you see a light, it's more difficult to ascertain what that is. So it's like this Chinese lantern, stupid ideas continues to proliferate throughout, anybody who wants to be skeptical about these sightings. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of frustrating, I guess. But I'm going to show you why it's definitely not a Chinese lantern at the end of this video.
Looks a little suspicious,
But not everyone believes ET is taking a trip to the 239.
People's sightings of UFOs, it's usually some sort of military aircraft or something like that. I'd have to see it to believe it, physically be there to see it.
Couldn't
Sorry, I'm upset because they show that Steven Spielberg ET movie, and it's like that movie was specifically pushing the limits of reality. I mean, that's what Steven Spielberg does. He's known as a director who creates movie magic. I mean, Howard the Duck.
No one laughs at a master of quack fu and a hot shot.
I mean, does people actually think that ducks can speak? So when they showed the ET movie, it's just like, man, why do they always got to do that, man? They always got to belittle these sightings by showing the most like movie magic type director with this ET come home reference. It's like, man, just stop for one. Like for once, let's just take this serious, right? I mean,
really be something from outer space? One aviation expert says only 1% of sightings go unexplained, but he couldn't rule out the fact that what Matt saw could be from out of this world.
It could be a number of different things. How arrogant do we think we are that we're all by ourselves in this entire universe?
atmospheric anomalies, drones, or covert military ops are other possibilities. But Pete thinks
that they probably are from outer space or from another location or a place that we are not aware of.
What we do know, these are still unidentified flying objects.
I'm surprised they didn't put a tinfoil hat on that guy just to kind of amp up the whole ET framing that they were doing there.
And we're back to asking the same question. What actually flew above Naples?
Okay, so unfortunately, we only have one image. You know, this is actually pretty cool because they talk about the possibility that it could be Chinese lantern, right? But let me show you what happens when I take that one frame that they have. I think they have a few frames actually, but it wasn't video, it was pictures. So I decided to take this one frame and I put it into Photoshop. And let me show you what we got here. So there is the frame real quick. And so basically, I was looking at the reflection in the water, okay? And look at this. Do you see? Let me show you what's going on here. Green, red, and kind of yellowish. They're not the same color. And this is really important because as it says down here, top 10 facts on Chinese lanterns for Chinese travelers. The number one fact, Chinese lanterns are almost always red. And Chinese lanterns is lit by fire. So unless you somehow magically made the fire a different color, the concept of this being a Chinese lantern but emanating green lights, it just doesn't make sense at the face of it. And not just that, it's like you have these really bright lights over here. For whatever reason, this one on the left side doesn't seem to be reflecting hardly any light into the water. I don't know why. Maybe it's just being overpowered by the other three. But it's important to note that you do have this one guy here and this other little orb over here that, I mean, they can't all be Chinese lanterns because they're behaving completely different. Some of them are reflecting off the ocean. Some of them are not reflecting at all. And this one barely is visible. It's just like a little sphere, floating sphere. So we know it's not a Chinese lantern. That's my opinion. But here's where things got really interesting. It so happens that I found this one Twitter, okay? And I was actually going to make an episode just on the Twitter feed itself. And then when I saw this, I was like, wow, unbelievable. What a great coincidence. So let me show you what's going on here. I was flying as flight crew for an airline when I noticed the object appears right after another aircraft flew over us at 40,000 feet. Now, the idea of an aircraft flying over them, I guess you can call it a near miss. This is something that we've talked about various times. I think we pulled out over 3 different cases where there are near misses where these crafts, for whatever reason, seem to be flexing their muscles against aircrafts. It doesn't seem to make sense why a highly technological civilization would do that, but it's happening. Are they like teenager extraterrestrials just screwing around with us? I mean, probably not. I'm just kind of joking around. I mean, who knows? I don't know. It's just that's behavior that we're witnessing with these crafts. So he uploads a video that he claims is coming from an airliner. So let me show you this. This is really crazy. What? Did we not just see that? We have green,
Ravens just
red.
copied on notified channel.
I mean, in this case it's white, the other one was yellow, but it's the same thing. Okay, so check this out. So we're gonna do some analysis here. Now, something else to note here, look at this. So you have 1, 2, 3 lights and this tiny little light right next to it. In this case, you actually see 2 of them, 2 tiny lights. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, and then just 2 tiny little lights. Here it seems to be in a different position. It looks like one of the little lights is green colored. That's pretty interesting. And then here you see 2 other lights over here. Who knows what that is? Oh, that seems like it's another airplane actually. Let me rewind that. Yeah, that's definitely another airplane because it's blinking. So forget those lights. These things are really interesting to me. It's not an airplane because airplanes blink. There's no blinking light here. Once again, let me just rewind here and show it to you real quick. So you got this, and then we just witnessed this. Look at that. Now, the order of the lights is shifted. The green tends to be the one that's on the outside, but the general, I mean, this looks almost identical. It's like we're witnessing the same phenomenon. And if you think that it's difficult to discover whether this particular footage is real or not, let me show you something I discovered with this Twitter footage. So they claim it's coming from an airliner, okay? Can we actually somehow prove this? Is there anything on this video that actually displays any possibility that this could be from an airliner? And the answer, I mean, I wouldn't be asking the question if the answer wasn't yes, but yes, there is something, and it's in the very end. Let me show you. Boom. Look at that. So this over here, I actually had to look it up. That's an attitude indicator. And actually, some airliners do have an attitude indicator that looks almost identical to this. Here, if we can just push play. And here, I took a screen capture of it so we can see it a little bit better. So here's a screen capture from the Twitter video. So we have the attitude indicator, and this, I believe, might be the radar for the airplane. And if you've never seen a cockpit of an airliner, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the attitude indicator that you can literally see on the screenshots and the radar over here. So unless they were like really good hoaxers and actually recreated all this, cockpit of an airliner and then moved the camera just barely kind of glimpsing at it just to make it seem like, it's one of those little details that's tough to pick up, but suddenly you can pick it up and then look, I don't think that's being hoaxed. When you have 2 different footages, one guy who obviously says that whatever he saw is pretty incredible, describing things that actually people describe when they actually see UFOs, meaning the thing was silent. And amped it up on Photoshop, we saw that it's completely different colors. So their one excuse that it's Chinese lantern, it's probably not the case. We can kind of see that. And then we have a footage from an airliner that we can tell comes from an airliner that seems to be almost identical to this particular image. That is incredible, ladies and gentlemen. I could not believe it when I saw this. I was just like, whoa. So there it is. I just wanted to share that with you. If you wanted to check out this Twitter, I'll go ahead and drop the link on the description. And don't forget to check out my new channel. I could really use your help to try to get this channel going. So thank you so much for joining me once again. This is Felipe speaking, signing out.